This wellness session is provided to you by the CCHS Wellness Team. Please contact CCHS Wellness at cchealth.org if you have any questions. Hi, I'm Kaki, a Japanese wellness writer and author, and today I'll be speaking about Japanese lessons on how to find real rest to prevent burnout. So let's get started. First, I want to talk about this idea of rest. When you imagine someone resting, what do you visualize? Perhaps you would describe a person on the couch, or maybe a person curled up under the covers in bed, or maybe imagine a person lounging in a hammock or suntanning on the beach. But if you were to ask a Japanese person, they would probably describe rest as a person leaning against a tree. This is because the Japanese character for rest is a combination of the character for person and tree. It's, really a universal image, the person leaning against the tree to rest, a representation of rest as not just simply sleep or the absence of work, but it's about being in a safe place, a place where, one can experience peace. So if we need rest, we need to feel safe. But how do you create the sense of safety? The first idea is understanding how our environment impacts our sense of safety. For example, recent work from home setups have tempted many of us to blend our environments, to eat where we work or work where we sleep, but this sort of blending of environments has made places that are traditionally designed for rest into spaces that aren't really conducive to finding peace. For example, when we see our work laptop, we are reminded of unread emails, or when we see a stack of mail in the corner, we're reminded of maybe the unpaid bills. It doesn't really matter if there's urgency to these responsibilities or not, but their presence can make, even simple events that should be relaxing, like enjoying a meal at the kitchen table or watching Netflix on the couch, into something that feels a little difficult to enjoy. So this first idea is, the space we place ourselves in matters. The second idea is understanding that burnout is not directly caused by workload itself, but it happens when you're overwhelmed by all the work you have to do. So this doesn't just mean physically exhausting ourselves by doing everything, but mentally as well. So if your mind is distracted by, everything you have to do, you will meet exhaustion. But if we itemize, prioritize, and minimize, we can find safety in the face of everything, that we have to do. So these are the 3 steps to take: itemize, prioritize, minimize, and I'll walk through them with you. First is itemize, which is to write out everything that has felt immediately pressing, has been stressful, or has otherwise been on your mind as things to do. Not just in your day job, but work outside of that as well. So this can be your personal finances, your personal goals, family affairs, etc. Second thing is prioritize, which is to take your list and separate it into the following categories. The first one is things that must be done but are time sensitive, so that's something like filing taxes. I know it's April, so we're thinking about taxes if you haven't already done them. Second thing is things that must be done as well, but these aren't as time sensitive, so this is things like eating well or regularly exercising. The third thing is things that you'd like to get done but are time sensitive. So let's say you have some PTO planned, you need to, sort out some logistics. So booking a hotel for that would be something you'd like to get done, but it's also time sensitive. And the fourth thing is things that you'd like to get done, but are not time sensitive. So that's like, calling a friend you haven't spoken to in a while. And then the third step, this is minimize, which is paring down the work you need to do. This is both mentally and physically. So mentally, what this can mean is choosing a few tasks from the first and second categories. And you should think about this in a way where you're mixing how time-consuming the task is or how difficult it feels to face. So, for example, you don't want to choose too many tasks that are really overwhelming, even if they're important to do, because you want to make sure it's something that you can manage. And, for the rest of the day, you can mentally set aside anything that you don't get to. And when you feel safe or you have a wider bandwidth for completing things, this is when you should choose to do some work on the third and fourth categories where there isn't as much urgency to finish them. Basically, what minimize can look like, and this goes back to the idea that the space we place ourselves in matters, is, we can't mentally set aside, say, the urgency to reply to a few emails if our laptop is right in front of us. So put away things that are distractions from what you have chosen to do, and this can also apply to the digital space. What I mean by that is, what does putting away distractions mean? It can look like, putting away unopened mail, laptops, and items unrelated to the task at hand, but remind you of things that need to be done. When you're thinking in the digital space, this can be removing apps from your phone's home screen. So personally, something I adopt is, I can't actually see the mail app on my phone unless I search for it, because, I don't want to be reminded of all the unread and unreplied emails I have every time I open my phone. I want to have a dedicated space for emails. This can also be turning off notifications. I carry the belief that if it's really urgent, someone will call me instead. So I don't need notification or text to be, interrupting what I'm doing. And another one that's very popular is, making one space for one use. So for example, if you're in bed, to only use that space for sleep, or if you're at the kitchen table, to only use that space to eat, and so on. So you don't need to follow every tip I shared, and what strategy works for one person may not necessarily work for another. But I nudge you to consider, what influences are impacting your sense of safety, and do they exist around you physically, or is it more of a mental pressure? So some final takeaways. First is that rest is not just physically lying down on the couch, but there needs to be a sense of safety. You may find that simply putting away stressors, this can be physically or mentally, can make finding this sense of relief and rest a lot easier to find. And the third is, stresses that exist mentally are not any less real than stresses that are physically present. So Japanese imagery of rest showed me that, rest isn't found in a vacuum, that we can't just look away and put on our headphones if we want to find real rest. But what we really need is to feel safe from the distractions of life. We need to be under a tree. And with that, I leave you with one last idea, which is you are already caught up, and anything you accomplish today is progress. I think a lot of us put a lot of pressure on ourselves to do everything all at once, but if you can go into the mindset that you're already caught up, you're not actually behind in anything, and today is just another day to make some progress, I think it can alleviate a lot of that pressure we put on ourselves. So go forth, have a great day, and I hope you practice being kind to yourself. Thank you for watching this video. If you like what you learned, subscribe to my newsletter at kakikata.ck.page. This is the best place to reach me if you have questions, want advice, want to get in touch, or stay up to date. You can also follow me on Instagram at kakikata.space. And finally, you can also buy my book, While the Art of Balance, which is available on Amazon and other retailers. I recently released this book, and it was written for people who want to find a sustainable way to live healthfully, but in a way that brings you joy. So I talk about rest, of course, but this book also covers topics like eating well, exercise, and how to build meaningful relationships. So thank you. This wellness session is provided to you by the CCHS Wellness Team. Please contact CCHS Wellness at cchealth.org if you have any questions.